Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to take a look at Dead Reckoning, a game by John D. Clare. This is an extension of his card crafting system as it applies to the thematic universe of pirates and piracy. In it, you will take on the role of a captain, and you will forge your crew into a fine, fighting, frolicking, trading, fun, festive machine of sorts. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what's in the box. Okay, let's take a look at what comes in Dead Reckoning from John DeClaire. First off, I've set up a game already for showing, so this has all the elements and pieces that we need. You can play 1 to 4 players. Each player has their own player board with the essential nice détentes for the cubes. You'll have a variety of cubes. These are multi-purpose cubes. They're going to be used for several different things. They are finite. So you do have to have cube management in your arsenal of skills. This is for how far you can move, what's your sale count. It's on sale today. Every player starts with these constructed plasticky cards, and these represent your crew, and the crew can be, you got your purser, you got gunners, you got first mates, second mates, third mates, kidding, bosun, more gunners, more crew. I guess you accrue them over time. Buccaneer, yeah, captain, deckhand, and crew. Alright, so you get that, and then you get your ship, which will sail in the waters of the big map I'll show you shortly. You have player aids that tell you all of the upgrades that you can have for your different characters. So you'll see that each one has level 1, 2, 3, and 4 upgrades. And that's pretty darn cool. Alright, you also have this ship and this the combat ship and the combat arena, per se. This is the clever combat system that is unlike other combat systems. No dice required, so it's already up my alley. You have ship upgrades, which you'll be using or purchasing in order to make your ship carry more goods or do more damages and stuffs. You have goods. These are generic. You don't have your spice and bananas and coconuts and gunpowder kind of thing. These are just rare, like standard goods. They represent the idea that you're shipping stuff and spending stuff. Money is actually also the end-all be-all point. So he who has the most money at the end wins. And then upgrades. You've got upgrades that you can do for islands that let you fortify them a bit when you control them. You've got guns that will do damage on passing by pirates. You've got your walls of glory that make it harder for them to take over and conquer your islands, etc. So with that, you also have, and this is the main area here, you have the harbor. The harbor is the central point. You're going to be going back and forth in the harbor a lot. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3 grid that represents the ocean. Who knew sea was so rectangular? But you start off visible, like only knowing these 3 front areas, these islands. And islands have a different sort of, each one has a little bit of a different way that your capacity for how you conquer it, what it can produce. You can pretty much build on it. And then the big thing are these transparent cards, and these are the ways that you upgrade your crew with these cards that give you abilities beyond just what you can upgrade normally. So you'll notice that there are four decks, 1, 2, 3, 4, representing 1, 2, 3, 4 distances from the harbor, and that's where you're going to get these more powerful cards that are going to come out. Farther away you are, generally speaking, the more cool it's going to be. And finally, you have these achievements. Achievements are not only for giving you sort of a purpose, a special purpose as you sail the waves, they also are a timer. So once someone has achieved 4 of these, it triggers an end game condition, after which you count up all the points being money, and see who won. That's really it. You also get some player aids. There's a solo variant, and so you'll have some You'll have some of these cards that help with the solo variant. There's also some expansions, as I showed in the unboxing, Sea Dog expansions, and then you even have a saga. Think Scythe with its sort of saga expansion. You can have an expansion that kind of goes through a storyline a little bit more detailed than just the the standard go out on the seas and do stuff. You also have, everyone gets a box so that you can store gold and such in. And that's it. That's what you have in every nutritious box of Dead Reckoning. Now let's get into an example of gameplay and see what you can do. Okay. We're going to get into an example of gameplay. Again, see, Dead Reckoning can take a while to play, so I'm not going to go through an entire playthrough. Someday I'm going to get an actual camera that isn't something I have to hold in my hands, and maybe do some playthroughs that are a little more exhaustive than what I'm doing. But this is meant to represent and show you the elements of the gameplay that you're going to be encountering, so that you can decide if the game is something interesting for you. So we're just going to run through a few general ideas of what can you do when you play Dead Reckoning. Now, the point of the game in Dead Reckoning is to have the most cash at the end of the game, and you will store that cash in your chest. There's a lot of ways to get cash, victory points being cash, etc. At the end of the game, some of your cards could have ways to get cash. Some of the islands that you're on, if you control them, will give you ways to get cash. It's all about the cash, baby. Oh yeah, Johnny. All right, so when you start your turn, the first thing you do is whatever you want based on actions. This is a very free-form kind of turn style. You don't go, you do this and then you do that and whatever. You can pretty much do any of these actions in any order you want. You start off with your ship in the harbor, and we're going to put it here as a representation. And based on turn order, you'll have certain goods you start with. Those goods are basically how you pay for upgrades and other fun and sundry things. You start with 4 cards. Your hand card limit is 6 unless you can increase it by certain events or activities that occur during the game. Now, what's special about these cards? Well, initially, not a ton. When you start off, you have 4 cards in your hand. You can play as many as you want. You don't have to, but you can take advantage of their special ability. You'll notice here that there's level 1. There's 4 levels to every player, or every card, sorry, every crew member. The deckhand at level 1 can do this, put 1 control cube on an island somewhere that your ship is on. It's a little subtle, but look, if you level it up, then you have a choice between doing that or getting a little extra movement in your ship. So that's an example of that. First Mate, on the other hand, gives you a resource in the harbor. So basically you can accumulate resources while you're out gallivanting, and then when you return to the harbor, you can pick up those resources. Again, when it upgrades, it changes entirely to being able to build stuff on islands you control. Controlling islands, pretty important, at least for one vein of approach to how you're going to master this game. Same thing with the crew. You get other abilities. And finally, oh, look at that, another crew member. So what are we going to do on our turn? Well, again, you can load and unload cargo, get rid of it. It's very loosey-goosey in that regard. You can play cards, you can set sails, which is a single action. That's the only kind of curious action that kind of involves a little bit more explanation. You can move your ship, you can buy advances. Advances are these cards here. They're advances or encounters. You spend the money in goods and you get this card. You can do that up to twice. You can also take on merchant ships. There's certain cards that allow you to either interact with them or attack them. Or you can use abilities on your played cards. So basically, very free form, and you can do them in any order. For example, you can move and then buy an advance. You can move somewhere else, buy an advance, etc. So let's follow the yellow brick road now. The first thing we're going to do is we're not going to load our cargo. Loading cargo is interesting because wherever you load it, you no longer get the advantages of that bay. So if I load even a single cargo here, I don't get to use that sail to increase my movement speed. So you know what? I think I'm okay with that though, because I'm just that kind of guy. So I can do some shenanigans here, and I'm going to set sails. Set sails is the single point in time during your turn when you can actually say, I'm going to establish how far I can move this turn. To do that, you count the number of sails here. You can play cards if they have sails. We don't, so I have a movement total of 2. I have set sails. That's it. That's all good and deal. That's the only thing I can do. That's the only time I can use this on my turn. Blah, blah, blah. We're done. So, now that I've got 2, I decide what to do. Well, I'm going to play this card, and I'm going to give myself a good grief? No, good reef. All right, and then we're going to do it again, and we're going to do it again. So we've used all 3 of these cards to load up onto the harbor, and because we're in the harbor, if you control an island or you're in the harbor, you can just load those suckers right on a ship, right up to the capacity level. We already set sails, so we don't have to worry about it this turn, and we have a capacity of 4 money or 4 goods. Goods grief. So now what are we going to do? Well, we are going to move. We have a movement of 2. Let's move to here. We have moved to the Tarantzel, the island of something or other. Yes, we are. So we've moved. We roll down. Okay, we've got 1 movement left. Now we're here. Now we can do some interesting things. We can decide to use this deckhand, and this deckhand says put a control cube right here. Why is that interesting? Because when you have more control cubes on this island than anyone else, and you have more control cubes than there are empty spaces, you control that island. And then you can start loading goods from it so that you can use that island for goods as well as the harbor. And you can start building fortifications, etc., blah, blah, blah. Life is grand. So then, the next thing we're going to do, because we're pretty freeform, is we like this advance. So we're going to go ahead and pay 3 goods, the cost of that advance, to grab that card. Now, we don't get it right away. We're just going to set it here. We can install that at the end of our turn. But for now, we leave it there. And we're done, aren't we? No, we're not. We're not done. We still have a movement left. So we're going to move here. This is where you get to explore. You can do this once a turn. You can explore an island. And look at that. Now we're in the spire. All right, the spire. So we grab an advancement to see what it is. Oh, look at that. So that's our advancement. It costs 4 goods, and it lets us gain free advances if we play our cards right. Har, har, har. And that's it. We have now finished moving. We have 1 cargo that's sitting around hanging out there. We have an advancement. So advancements have to go on the cards you've played. So these, or you could set one aside. You are always allowed to set one aside if you can, but if you can play the others, you need to. And then we decide, what do we do? Now this, notice how it fits here, or it fits here. So you look and go, what does this do? This gives you a free ship icon, which other cards use, or it gives you another good, a good for every wheel on there. You know what? I like that. I'm going to insert that here. Oh, Lordy. Pardon me. You're going to insert it. You have to insert it in a certain way, in a certain ordering, so that it covers up the top part, but doesn't cover up the bottom part. I'm going to go ahead and do that and just... Okay, now we have a beefed up card. Look at that. Now we're going to be able to add more resources in the harbor to pick up and use. Nice. So these all get discarded. Yay! And then we draw 4 more cards. We refill any advances. We grab that advance, so we're going to grab another advance here and put that here. So everything's all beefed up. So at the end of our turn, refill. We choose pirate mode or mercantile mode. Now, right now there's not a big reason, but let's go ahead and do pirate mode anyway with these terrible pirate notes. What this means is that you're kind of going into sort of wait mode. Like, if you've ever played a turn-based game where you're like, I want to just crouch and react to an enemy coming in, like XCOM, when you're like, when you settle in and like, okay, I'm just here, and if anybody comes in, I'm going to attack them. Or defend this island. So right now, what it does is it means that if some other ship comes in and wants to interact with that island, not the advancement, but the island itself, they're gonna have to fight you. That's good because you get to defend it. On the other hand, you always have to defend it if they're going to, which means you could be brought into fights you might not want to be brought into, but that's a choice you make to go, am I pirate or I am merchant. Then you lose all your sails if you haven't spent them. It's one and done. You sleeve the advances like we did, discard, and then draw. Now what can happen is, while everyone else is taking their turn, you get to take the newly drawn cards and level one of them up. In other words, I can go from this to that, or grab 2 of these or whatever. So I'm going to choose one, and all you do is you just, again, I'm setting this phone. Magic. Now you're level 2. And now you've got these ready for the next turn. And that's how it goes. You're going to go back and forth until an achievement is accomplished. Now, what happened is when you explore an island, what I should have done is put here a cube on this exploration track here. In a 2-player game, if you explore 5 islands, which we did when we flipped one of the unknown tiles over, we get a cube here. When you get all 5, then you've achieved it, and you get to place that here, and then you get your cubes back. You don't get to prematurely pull them back. You can't abort, whatever. And the other ones are 12. If you can turn in 12 cargo to get an achievement. There's money. You can give 30 money. There's several different things. You can be in combat, in battles, etc. Anyway, you achieve 4 of these, and you trigger the end of the game. So how do you control an island? Let's go over that right now. Again, when we have 2, 4, once we have, so 3 right now, we can't control it because there's still as many empty spaces as there are us. So, but if example, say the green player had done that, and we've gone, that would be a dumb idea for the green player, but say it was like this, and I did, okay, now I am a 3-to-1 ratio, and so I get control of this island. That means I put a permanent cube here. You've lost that cube. You're never going to get it back. It gives you a boost. It makes it a little harder for others to come around and add enough cubes to beat you out. They can do it, but it's tricky. And so right now you now have control over the island, and these permanent cubes stay here. So if you ever wanted to take an island back, say you had 2 cubes on it, you already have a leg up on anyone else on being able to do that. So that's how that works. And again, you can pay the cost of, say, 5 goods, and you use a special card, and you can build this fortress, which means if anyone's attacks, they get to roll 5, or this island rolls 5 cubes in order to be able to defend itself, and that's not trivial. That's not small change. And again, you've got guns, and that'll let you roll 7 cubes, and this you can build, it actually makes the production on this island a bit greater. So there's a lot going on in that one small tile card, as well as the advancement next to it, that's going on your turn. That's how you handle the issue of control. And again, like if you have all those things and you have the pirate here, someone who wants to attack this is going to have to like fight you as a pirate, win as a pirate. They're going to have to fight this island and win against the defenses of this island. So pretty much you've locked it in pretty well. Someone's going to really have to strive to want to beat you. Of course, if you control this island, you're going to get 6 points at the end of the game. Not small change. All right, and then that's really the essence of what you can do. We've got to show you some of the other cards, like Purser lets you actually produce on any island, which you hope is yours. You want it to be yours. The cannons come into play shortly. We've already shown, I think we've shown everything but combat. So I'm going to show that to you now. So say you're in a situation where you are fighting, let's do this. There you go there. So let's just do a fight. So we're fighting, and we're going to have green do fighting. And let's say that green has 2 cubes. It's going to fight with 2 cubes. I mean, there's a sequence for it. And then red, or purple as a defender, is going to decide their cubes that they're going to use. You can always use 1. So let's just do 2 to 1. Let's just show you how that goes. And again, there's abilities that you can get on cards that will help you in combat as well. But the first thing you do, there's an order to it, that you go grab the cards, grab the stuff, and then you just, that didn't go right. So then you're going to toss those suckers here. So what did we do? Well, we have green landed here, and this is 2 points towards victory. This, 3 points towards victory. And purple landed on the ability to get some goods. So at this point, someone can play abilities. They can go back and forth with abilities that might modify, like, hey, move a cube to the left or right, etc. But the bottom line is you roll these cubes. Where they land is how you're going to resolve combat. And the interesting thing is damage is utterly unrelated to whether you win or lose the combat. These combat tokens matter. So right now it's 3-0, which means that green would win this fight. And that's pretty amazing. So if you landed here, then you would grab, say, let's do this. Say you landed here, and green would take this cube. This is the exploding die cube. Add another, and then roll it again. Now look, now it's got even more glorious goodness. So, say this combat ended. The winning and losing rewards are actually not that large of themselves. It's not meant for combat to really take someone completely out of the game and knock them for a loop. Yes, green will win. Yes, purple will have to take a damage. Might sink their ship. If they do, they lose some gold. They keep their cargo and they go back to the harbor. So it's not dire. These are friendly pirates. But you also, I mean, purple also gets these goods, so they might get something out of combat they didn't expect, damage, etc. So that's kind of the reality of combat. It's fun. It's actually a lot of fun. I don't think I've had this much fun throwing stuff into things since Pompeii, when I got to throw citizens of Pompeii into a volcano, except in this case they get to come out and do good things for you. So that's really the essence of gameplay. There's a lot going on. Some of it's very freeform, but it's also very structured in how freeform it is. You do have discrete things you do. You have a lot of things you can do. You roll, I mean, and honestly, I'm getting into my review thoughts, but let's just cap it up here and go to my final thoughts on Dead Reckoning. Okay, final thoughts on Dead Reckoning. First off, as always, I like to go through the cons, then the pros, and then I come up to my final conclusions. First off, let's go into the cons in a little bit more detail, small as they are. I think we'll go with the most minuscule ones first. I think this game plays best at 1, 3, or 4 players. I did not think that 2 players went well. It was really vacuous. It didn't even, it felt like people were just kind of like, you had to kind of go out of your way to mess with other people, and even then, what's the point? Didn't really have the 2-player experience that I liked, but 3 players, 4 players, when you're filling the seas, and 1 player with its automa, surprisingly enough, I think actually did a really good job of it. So yeah, there's that. The other thing is tear down for this game is going to be elongated. It's not going to be, I mean, that's a really trivial thing, but like you take your backpack and your pack mule and you go up to a lake and you camp out, and then when it's time to come down, you got to bring it all back down and tear it and like think of it that way and go like, yeah, like you're having fun building these card combinations and stuff like that, but you are going to, eventually, like, it's a little bit cumbersome, I mean, the end, to pull everything back out and organize it. So it's almost like it's more work to unpack it, or to pack it, than to unpack it in some ways. This is mitigated by the fact that there's really not a lot of components here. A lot of stuff is repurposed. You're really dealing with a lot of stuff that's compacted into the card crafting system. So again, not a big deal. The one big thing is that as someone who plays a bazillion pirate games, one of the things I really appreciate about, one of the things that makes a really great game for me in the pirate realm is fear, tension, and this isn't that type of game. This falls into more of a lighthearted, like Maracaibo had the same kind of thing going on, where this isn't Merchant Marauders. You're not, I love the idea of inflicting fear and terror, or the constant dread of the threat of fear and terror, whether it be from another pirate ship, a pirate raider, national navies coming and getting me and stuff. This isn't Black Sails. It isn't even really Pirates of the Caribbean. It's more like Lazy Town pirates, to say. Even the battle is lighthearted, Jolly Rancher, Roger fun. And that's not a bad thing of itself. It's just setting the expectation that if you really are looking for sort of that, like, pirate fear, Black Sails, kind of thing, this isn't going to be the game for you. So if you don't mind that, which there's a place for that in my heart, for lighthearted, fun pirate themes in my heart, then that isn't going to bother you a bit. So that's really it for my modest critiques. Now let's get into the things that I really like about Dead Reckoning. I really like despite the fact that it's a pizza-sized rulebook, which I despise just generically, but you've all heard me whine about that before. The rulebook is well done. It's well organized. It builds on itself over the course of reading through it. It's orderly. There aren't very many ambiguities. There's a few issues as far as what you can do when another pirate player blockades you from an island, but those are resolved pretty quickly on Board Game Geek, and really I think most people can kind of ascertain it over time themselves. Great examples of all the actions. Again, I like it when someone doesn't just take the most simple version of an action and make an example of it. I like it when someone takes a more complicated version of how an action can play out and describes it, and this manual does that here. Excellent synopsis of all the symbols and all of the abilities. It does a good. It's just a great manifest to show you everything. You'll quickly learn the iconography in this game, and it's very important to do so because it's very icon heavy. It breaks down the four major paths or strategies that it sort of kind of pushes you to look into. There's a great write-up in the back that does that. It says like, hey, if you're going to be aiming this way, here's some things to consider. If you're going to aim for this style of play, here are some things to consider. This is fantastic stuff. This is the kind of stuff that's very integral and helpful for people who aren't gamers with thousands of games that want to get a feel for how this game will play. Another point is, yes, very consistent iconography. Won't take you long at all to learn it. Crafting is as expected, top notch. It's a card crafting system, so of course it's going to be its strong point. It helps you tailor your crew towards your high level goals, and you can decide how that goes, and you can look at the lay of the land on the seas and look for places and advancements that are going to help you achieve your goals, or you could just play it haphazardly too. Done that. But it does give you that idea that you can customize and upgrade and tweak your crew in meaningful ways. And all of these are ever incremental and ever forward improvements. You're not going to do something that damns one of your crew to a bad position or anything. You're going to be constantly kind of moving forward, eking along, getting better and better, feeling more powerful. And that to me is the sign of an excellent level curve on a game. And speaking of the upgrades, there's meaningful upgrades everywhere. You've got your crew cards themselves, which you can level up to 4 different levels. You've got advancement cards that you can apply again, with the idea that you can beef up one character mightily. You can semi beef up several characters. It's up to you. You get to pick how you want things to go as far as how your crew gets better. You can attack merchant ships or trade with merchant ships to get their bonuses. Islands themselves give you bonuses as you control them. And there's a lot of addictive, bite-sized game advancements here, and that's really satisfying. You don't have to wait a long time to eke out that next important and cool thing. You're always on the lookout for improving yourself in little tiny ways all throughout your turn and then even afterwards. Many of the advancements are similar though. I mean, you're not going to see there's not every card is custom. So I'm like, hey, you get a sail. Oh, you get a sail. Oh, there's a sail, that you can put on and stuff. But you also have to consider the spatial considerations, like when you're looking out on the islands and you're like, well, I got to go down there to get this advancement. It's really going to help me out versus I could go over here instead, and it's not quite as cool, but it's still helpful. That's another thing that you have to consider. And rolling into that, the island handling feels plausible. Controlling an island is important, particularly for a couple of the play styles, and there is a nice balance between feeling comfortable that you control an island, but always having that nagging fear that you could lose control of it, which is a little tricky to pull off sometimes because you can get so cemented down that you're like, this is my island and everyone else is off limits and there's no way you can take it. There is a way to take it, and it is costly if someone else takes it, but it isn't easy. So you have that nice balanced tension between controlling something and still having a way to go, I'm gonna go after it. So don't rest too carefully. Thanks to the various things like having your pirate in that particular island or building up strong but not necessarily impervious defenses for that island. So that all's good. The turns structure is great because it gives you the ability to pull off combos in ways that don't arbitrarily limit you. for the sake of the game. And by that I mean you get to do anything you want on your turn, but rather than say here's a blank slate, like who knows what, I'm confused on the one hand, and then on the other hand it's like, well, you have to move first and then you can do these actions, but you can't move after you do that, and you have to follow these things. There's a very loose structure to how you plan your turn out, which means you can do things that make sense in the realm of trying to play play act these roles. I'm a pirate. I go to the harbor. I pick up cargo. I then set sail. I move over to this island. I spend something to buy something. That's great. I didn't spend all my movement. I've still got 2 left, so I can move 1 over and I can explore uncharted waters and bring that up. And then, oh, well, I guess I can move over here to this other island. And then, oh, there's a pirate there. I could attack the pirate. I could get these are things that you can chain together without any arbitrary limitation on must move first. After all your movement is done, please proceed to the next available cashier. And so I like that. I like that you can string together plausible piratey plans. Card management and advancing versus upgrading. I've already touched on it again, but I do like, again, that you can tailor your crew to a particular archetypical play style and have it work out. Expansions add significant meaningful enhancements. The Sea Dogs kind of make your captains real special. And the Saga expansion really cleverly and introduces a few things in that make your life even more fun. So everyone's having a good time. And finally, battle. I mean, the thing is, battle is not like the end all be all, but it's an important pillar, but it's not the only pillar to this game. But you will run across it, and it will be possibly something that you'll want to get good at. Battle is a fun fest. It just is. It is unconventional, and it doesn't tether you to the classic dice and damage sort of situation. Where you roll the dice, you take that damage, I take that. No, it's not. It's a free for all. Someone described it as a pachinko. In some ways it is. In some ways it's just a blast. Har har har. I like that the battle that you aren't. Your damage and the actual victory are not tethered together. You could do more damage to a winner than a winner does to you and still win the battle based on how things go out. It really unshackles that. You can also find that you can win as a loser. It sort of follows there's a game called Furnace where as you're bidding on stuff, if you win, you get a certain thing, but all the losers get certain things too. And so you never totally get. Well, you could, but in general, you could find yourself on the bonus end of a losing battle, and that's cool. Battles, it seems like, really are meant to temper progress, but they don't fatally damage you from achieving your goals in the game. So, with that, final thoughts on Dead Reckoning. Let's get the elephant in the chat room out of the way now. Does this, after all the pirate games I've played, and they are legion, dethrone Merchants and Marauders as the top pirate game ever made? And the answer of that is no. No, it does not. So then the next question, does it dethrone Forgotten Waters for the lore and narrative and immersion? No. But then the third question, is it better than Maracaibo, which is number 3 on my list of top pirate games? Yes and no. Yes and no. Both of these approach the pirate game with a lighthearted, blustery, gale of a good time vibe. Sort of like the parade at the pirate parade at the amusement park kind of feel. In both of those games, you advance and rarely go backwards. They both emphasize small, incremental improvements, baby steps, Bob. To help you along your way to be the pirate you've always dreamed of. Now, Maracaibo has a wealth of tiny micro advancements, but with a race style that hurries you along the way, whereas Dead Reckoning tends to give you leisure rights to meander around and create some playful mayhem without the constraint of time. So then, the fourth question is Dead Reckoning worth it? Most definitely. Unlike the previous sandbox games, that I did a review on called Shiver Me Timbers, that game threw all of the same pirate trappings and more into the box, but with a lack of cohesion, in that it was so loosely defined that it didn't really shore up into a solid sum of the game components together to make me feel like this was a great time on the high seas. That's not a problem here. There's a very focused sandbox style here that makes sure that you can feel both freedom to innovate on the high seas while still being true to the general direction that you want to sail and to achieve the success you want to achieve in this game. So it's definitely in the top 5 pirate games uh, that have materialized, even if it isn't that elusive best pirate game ever made that remains aloof, like a silhouette, faintly of a ghost ship, far on the horizon of time. Someone out there will make one. But in the meantime, this is a worthy contender, and definitely my favorite pirate game this year. So with that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.